Relationship with money. We started a few weeks ago on a series about stewardship. First one was a foundational sermon, laid out the basic principles of stewardship from Matthew 14, that we possess what we do not own. We can choose what we do with it, but we will have to give an account to God for our choices. That's right. Those three basic principles of stewardship were our introductory lesson, Stewardship 101, and then we began to apply those principles to various aspects of our lives. We looked at the stewardship of time. Psalmist told us, teach us to number our days, that we would get a heart of wisdom. Then we looked back over in the New Testament in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, and we talked about the stewardship of gifts. We learned that there are many gifts, many ministries, many activities, but some kind of way God worked it so that everybody has what God wanted us to have. And that what we have is not for us, it's for the body. So when it comes to time and when it comes to our gifts, we possess what we do not own. They belong to God. He gives us the ability to choose what to do with those gifts that he gives us. Spiritual gifts and the gift of time. But there will come a day when we have to stand before God and give an account of what we did with his time.
That's right.
His gifts. That brings us up to today, talking about oftentimes a topic that we don't want to hear about in church. Money. M-O-N-E-Y. When I was a kid, the song said, it'll get you anything you want to buy. I can't remember who sung that. Who? The OJs. Choir members know all the songs. But this is not a sermon about what you give back to God in church through your tithe and offering. That's another sermon, but we're not ready for that one yet. We need to start with the basics.
All right.
Not just what we do with a portion of our money. That's kind of like building a house starting with the roof.
Right.
Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. We got to start at the bottom, the foundation. And then once we lay a good foundation, then we can work our way up.
All right.
So today's sermon is not about what you give back to God in your offering. Today's sermon is at the bottom.
All right.
Foundation. Pouring the concrete. And so today we want to talk about cultivating a healthy relationship with money.
All right.
And I guess I'll just start by telling you it is my belief, my firm belief, that life is built upon the foundation of relationship.
Okay.
When we come into this world without relationship, we won't make it. We need relationship with our caregivers. mother, father, family members. And it is my conviction that the quality of your current life can be determined by the quality of your relationships. That's my belief. Think about it. Let me know if you agree or disagree. But I believe that the quality of the life that you currently live can largely be determined or influenced by the quality of the relationships that currently exist. Let me see if I can prove my point. At the core of it all, for me as a follower, a believer in Jesus Christ, one that's attempting to learn, follow his ways, and depend upon him to change me to be more like him, that at the core of it all for me is relationship with God.
Right.
And that should be the case for every believer, every Christian. That our lives at the center is relationship with God. That everything else is built upon the foundation of that relationship. And then there are other relationships that for the believer should follow the pattern of our relationship with God.
All right.
That's our relationship with other people. The best thing that we can do for the people that we're in relationship with is learn to treat them like God treats us. And if we can just spend our time thinking about, reflecting, learning about how God treats us, then how we treat others will just flow right out of that. Some of our earthly relationships should improve. Some of them. If we start treating them
Right.
like God treats us, I think the world will be a little bit better place to live in. And so hopefully I'm building my case today that the quality of your life can be largely determined and influenced by the quality of your relationships. But all relationships are not human relationships. In terms of relationship with other people and relationship with God, we have relationship, believe it or not, with things.
You're right.
Well,
We have relationship with things. Some people view their relationship with things as tools to accomplish specific things in life, and some people have a relationship with things that they just want more of them.
yeah.
All right. Yeah.
And then, believe it or not, I believe that nearly everybody in here, maybe age 10 or up, maybe a little bit younger than that, has some type of relationship with money.
Yeah.
That's just about everybody up in here,
Right.
except for the little bitty ones. That there exists a relationship that we have with money. And what do I mean in terms of relationship with money? It's influenced by what you've been taught about money, how you've seen others in terms of their attitudes and behaviors about money, beliefs that you've come to adopt when it comes to money, the level of importance or value that you place on money, the purpose of money, even your attitudes toward people with an abundance of money,
You're right.
and your attitudes toward people with a large deficit of money. All of those things, and maybe a few others, help to form your current relationship with money. And so the question that leads me to initially is what does a healthy relationship with money look like? I want to suggest to you that a healthy relationship with money has at least some of these elements and maybe a few more. That your knowledge and attitudes about money align themselves with the Word of God. I'm talking to believers.
Okay.
People who've made a decision to place their faith and trust in Jesus Christ. For you, a healthy relationship with money looks like what this says about money shapes what you think and feel about money.
All right.
Help us, preacher. All right.
And that your view of money aligns itself with those basic principles of stewardship. What you possess, you do not own.
All right. Right.
You've been given the ability to choose what to do with it, but you will have to give an account to God. That means that a healthy relationship with money, from the believer's perspective, starts with understanding it ain't yours. None of it.
Right.
Not 90% is yours and 10%
Help us today.
is God's. You possess what you don't own. That means your money ain't yours. It's God's. And some of y'all are like, preacher, that's enough for today.
Amen.
That's enough for today. You should have stopped with the baptism in the choir. Telling me my money ain't mine now. I'm just the mailman. This is the mail.
All right. That's all right.
God said
Help us, preacher.
it ain't yours.
All right.
It's His. You get to choose what you do with it. That's where stewardship comes in. But with stewardship comes accountability. And one day, believe it or not, you'll have to stand before God and give an account of every penny. One day, you're going to have to stand before God and give an account of every penny. What did you do with my money? That's the topic of conversation between you and God on that great day. Ain't going to be no lying. Ain't going to be no blaming. Ain't nobody he but she.
Right.
Brothers, you can't say my wife spent it all.
You let her.
Right. You gave me the credit card.
Even the wives are going to have to stand before God. The Lord's going to say, what did you do with my money? That's a sobering thought.
You right. You right.
We think about standing for God and giving account of our deeds. But we're going to have to stand and give an account before God every penny
Right.
that He allowed us to earn.
Have mercy.
With the strength He gave us, and the bodies He gave us, and the brain He gave us, and the opportunities that He opened for us, and the jobs that He allowed us to have, He's gonna say, what did you do with my stuff?
Yeah.
And a healthy relationship with money lines itself up with those basic understandings. It ain't mine, I get to choose, I'm gonna have to answer. So if that's what a healthy relationship with money looks like, what does an unhealthy relationship with money looks like? It might be characterized by the sentiment that I know that's bad English, get enough of it.
You right. You right.
An insatiable appetite for more and more money. A lack of satisfaction. You got it right, Richard.
Right. I
Greed.
heard that. He said greed.
That's what an unhealthy relationship with money. But just greedy for more money. Thinking that the money, once you earn it,
Right.
belongs to you.
Uh-huh.
That's an unhealthy relationship with money. That money is at the core of nearly every decision you make.
Right.
If it's always about money,
Uh-huh.
if the decisions you make in life are always about money, that's an unhealthy relationship with money. Thinking that you don't have to answer, it's mine, and I can do what I want with it. That's an unhealthy relationship with money. So the relevant question that the text gives us an answer to is, how can we cultivate a healthy relationship with money? We can talk about what you do with it in another sermon. But I believe what you do with it is influenced by what your relationship with money is. And that's the core. If that gets straight between you and God, your relationship with money, how you utilize it is just a matter of skill.
Right.
So that brings us to the text. How can we develop cultivate a healthy relationship with money? Well, the first thing that the text teaches us, you can do it, and if you want to know how to do it, what you need is an authoritative declaration. That's what you need. That's the first blank in your notes there. You need an authoritative declaration. You can't have a healthy relationship with money if you give the incorrect answer to says who.
Okay. All right.
And for the believer, the Bible, it says who. And if you have a says who that's not the Bible, that means you have another authority. And when you have some other authority other than God, it at some point will become a slippery slope. So you need an authoritative declaration. That means you have to settle Says who? Who can tell me what to think and what to do with the money that I possess? You got to deal with that up front. Don't matter what the preacher says, if he bangs you over the head, would bring you all the tithes into the storehouse. The issue is, says who? That's the bottom line. And if you correctly respond to says who, then you can prepare your heart to receive what says who says.
Right.
Does that make sense? Because in the text where it says in verse 19, do not lay up. And then in verse 20 where it says, but lay up. Those words are commands. And that means says who is talking. They're not suggestions. They're not considerations. Says who says, don't do this, do that. That's the says who. We really could just about shut it down because that's enough for us to swallow for a whole week right there. Who says who with money for you? That's a big chunk, brother. Who says who for you regarding money? So it's authoritative because it's a command. But notice what he says in the text of what not to do and what to do. Don't lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. Here's what says who says. Anything, this is important, anything that you trust in more than God will always eventually fail. Anything that you trust in more than God will always eventually fail. In the text, it's money. But it's broader than money. I'm going to say it again because it's just that important. Anything that you trust in more than God will always eventually fail. And here's the truth, Antioch. If you do not learn that lesson, you are headed for pain.
Bless the Lord.
Whenever you place your trust in something more than God, it will always eventually fail. And when it fails you, it will produce pain. And if you want to lessen, not eliminate, but lessen pain in your life, follow that instruction from Scripture. I'm going to say it one more again. Anything that you trust in more than God will always eventually fail. Your money, your health, your relationships, your job, your house, your car, your children, anything that you trust in more than God will fail you. And when it fails, it always produces pain.
Yes, sir.
So Jesus says, don't do it. He tells you what's going to happen to money. It's right in the text. Don't, and when he says don't lay up for yourselves, he ain't talking about don't be responsible.
Right.
He ain't saying don't pay your bills.
Right.
He's talking about greedy.
Yeah.
Can't get enough.
Right.
All my decisions are based on money. He's talking about that.
Right. Right.
Don't do that because he tells you what's going to happen. It's going to corrode. Moth, rust, thieves break in and steal. If your hope is in money,
Right.
this is what's going to happen.
Uh-huh.
Sooner or later, with your money, if you place your hope in it and not be a steward of it. And then verse 20 says, but lay up for yourselves treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, where thieves do not break in and steal. And treasures in heaven is the result of your heavenly works on earth.
Uh-huh.
And your heavenly works on earth are secure. They'll last. They don't corrode. They're not stolen. My hope is built. Nothing less. Jesus' blood and righteousness. Dare not trust the sweetest frame. Wholly lean on Jesus, on Christ.
Right. Right.
Solid rock.
Right.
I stand. All of the ground is sinking sand. We need an authoritative declaration. Are we going to abide by says who? Are we going to seek heavenly things based upon our heavenly works on earth? Or is our highest pursuit the almighty dollar? You need to, is it going to be what says who says? Or is it going to be what you say?
That's just not.
If we want to cultivate a healthy relationship with money, we need an authoritative declaration. We need to follow what says who says about what we should be seeking and pursuing as our highest goal and hope in life, where our security lies. Stuff on earth, stuff in heaven. And then after the authoritative declaration, he provides for us a reason, a spiritual explanation.
Help us preach.
Gives us an authoritative declaration, then he gives us a spiritual explanation. And he says it in verse 21. He says for. Y'all know what that word means? Because. That's the reason for what he said.
Help us.
Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So Antioch, you ain't fooling nobody. That's what the verse means.
Right.
You can't say God is at the center of my life and your hope is in money. You can't say I love the Lord and he means the world to me and every decision you make is motivated by money.
Right.
Jesus says very plainly that ain't true. Your treasure always reveals your heart. Your treasure always reveals your heart. It's been said long time ago in church that, and I think I'll take a risk and kind of say it. I bet you I could look at your bank account, tell you where your heart is.
Please. My.
Jesus said, you ain't fooling nobody.
Yeah.
Where your treasure is, where your hopes are, what you seek, what guides all of your decision making, that's where you'll find your heart. So, it ain't in what you say.
Yeah.
It's in what you do.
Help us today.
So that's the spiritual explanation. He gives us a declaration.
My God.
Says who says.
Right.
Don't live that way. Don't be greedy. Don't be stingy. Don't set all your hopes on money. Don't make all your decisions guided by money and store it up just for yourself, because it don't last. And whatever you trust in more than God will always eventually fail. And he says, and here's why, because wherever that is, that's where your heart is. And you ain't fooling God. And the truth is, you really ain't fooling anybody.
Right.
And the truth is, you really ain't fooling yourself. So he gives us the reason why. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And then Jesus says, I need to make it clear.
Help us preach.
So then after he gives an explanation, he gives us a human illustration
All right.
to make sure that we understand about this relationship with money. Apparently our relationship with money is a big deal to God. Because he could have just said one verse and hit it and quit it. But he kept on. So I'm going to keep on.
All right.
He gives us an illustration, a human illustration. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? And he's using this human illustration about our physical bodies to help us understand this spiritual point about the connection between your heart and your treasure. And humanly speaking, biologically speaking, physiologically speaking, our eyes guide our direction. Y'all got that? Yeah. Our eyes determine where we're headed, because we look with vision and we see where we're headed, and we go in the direction that our eyes lead us in. Now, if our eyes were unhealthy and our vision is blurred, then we can't see clearly to go in the right direction.
Right.
That's what Jesus is teaching us here in the text. If your eye is healthy, or it may say if your eye is pure, that means if it's clearly focused. If your eye is working the way that it's supposed to work, it can see the right direction, and your body can follow your eyes and go in the right direction. If you got good eyes. That's what he says in the text. But if your eye is not good, if it's blurry, if you got double vision, if you can't focus properly, then there's no way you can know the right direction to head in.
Right.
And if your eye is dark, he says your body will be dark. It won't know which way. That's the human thing. But what's that got to do with money?
Help us, preacher.
What does that have to do with treasure and heart and seeking things above or seeking things below? Well, that's a great question. I had to kind of labor and get real hard in my Bible study principles, and we learned in Bible study in the summertime that you need to study the word and find out what it means, and then you got to look at context, and context will help you determine the right usage in that right verse. And I did all of my work, and here's the conclusion that I came to. If what guides your decision making is bad,
Right.
you're gonna always end up in the wrong place.
Right.
If what guides your decision making is money, you're not going to end up where God wants you. The eye guides our body externally, like our heart, our minds guide us internally.
Yeah.
If your mind has not been aligned with says who, if your heart is bent on earthly treasure, you will never end up where God wants you to be when it comes to money, and you are setting yourself up for pain.
Right.
Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So he gives us this declaration, he gives us an explanation, he gives us a human illustration, and then finally he gives us a practical application.
Help us.
What should we do with all of this information Jesus gives us about relationship with money? Here it is. No one can serve two masters.
Right.
For either he will hate the one and love the other,
Right.
or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money.
That's what he said.
So here it is. You will always serve somebody or something.
All right.
And it's always one in every crowd. Not me. I'm my own man. Pick up my boots by my own bootstrap. I'm keeping it 100. I'm going to do what I want to do. Say what I want to say. Decide whatever I want to decide with my money. If I earned it, I can do what I want to do. Is that some of y'all? There's always one in every crowd. Chances are, somebody up in here. Like, Reverend, that's for them. Look at your neighbor and say, no, that's for you. He's talking about you. Here it is. You will always serve somebody or something.
You right, Pastor. You right.
Here's the second one.
You right.
There's only room for one at the top.
All right.
Let me read it again. No one can serve two masters.
Right.
Here it is. There's only room for one person at the top of your life. Not God and money. There's only enough space for one.
For one.
Let me tell you why. Because the moment God leads you to do something other than what you want to do with your money,
Right. Make a choice.
you're going to have to choose.
Yeah.
And you're going to choose based on who's at the top.
Right.
You right.
You're going to always serve somebody or something. Only room for one at the top. Here's the last one. Choice is yours.
That's right.
Help us today.
Cannot serve God and money. You choose.
That's it.
That's pretty much the bottom line, y'all. If you want to cultivate a healthy relationship, you got to deal with the says who question. God says this, don't do this, do that. He gave us a reason why. Because you ain't fooling nobody. Your treasure is where your heart can be found. Every time. And then he says, let me make it clear. If your heart and your mind has been corrupted by worldly treasure, you can't see straight to make good decisions. And sooner or later, they're going to fail you, and you're going to have excess pain in your life because you trusted in something or somebody other than God. And false gods will always eventually fail. 100% of the time. Given enough time. And the Lord wants to spare us from unnecessary pain. So he gives us, and then finally, this amazing application. Can't serve two? Somebody's going to win Ain't but one room for one at the top. The choice, Antioch, is yours. I ain't told you not one thing what to do with your money. We need to start about our relationship
Right. Right.
with money. So how Reverend, can we walk out of here today and do better?
Help us, preacher.
All right.
We've opened up the Bible. We've let the Bible speak to us about our relationship with money. How can we walk out of here and do better? Well, I suggest you schedule a self-examination
All right.
with whomever are the financial decision makers under your roof. And you ask yourself 3 questions.
All right.
The first question is about your treasure. Here's the first question. What are you seeking the most? That's the treasure question. Y'all get the treasure question?
Uh-huh.
Comes from the says who in the text. Don't store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Don't treasures on earth, store up yourselves treasures in heaven. What do you treasure most? Treasures on earth, treasures in heaven. Ask yourselves the treasure question.
All right.
And then secondly, ask yourself the heart question. Is your heart pure? Is it single-minded? Is it focused on God? If it ain't clear, your decision making when it comes to money won't lead you where God wants you to be.
All right.
Is your mind, is your heart pure? Or is it tainted by the pursuit of earthly treasure?
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
That's the heart question. And then the service question, who you really serving? God or money? Who's at the top? The last thing I need to tell you is money is not sinful.
Right. Right.
Money is not evil.
Right.
But it's your relationship
Right. Right.
with money that makes the difference. Let's stand.